Hello again, everyone, and welcome to One-on-One. I'm Martin False. And for years, I've been sitting, and across the table, we get a guest, and they give us their story. But I have to admit, you see me a lot of times. I don't have a lot of notes. Pride myself on remembering a lot of things. But when we come back from the break, our guest today has a resume so big, you have to cheat a little bit. I have to be honest with you. And he has roots in Louisiana. He has roots here in South Louisiana, and I'm not going to give you his name. You're going to have to stick around, and after the break, you're going to have to find out exactly who I'm talking about. But he continues to help the military grow. He's been a big part of it, and he will be my guest on One-on-One. Don't go away. One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. How did you get from sea to air or air to sea, depending on... Tell me about that story.
I'm wrapping up a 33-year career in the Navy. I've started out at the lowest level, E1.
Yeah.
Now I'm retiring as a lieutenant commander. I go from, as we say, one side of the cloth, if you're standing before the captain, to the other side of the cloth. I go from the galley to the wardroom with the officers. So we call that being a Mustang. And it's named after the Mustang is a wild and woolly horse that the Navy brings in and gives new meaning to the word leadership, because you can be on both sides of that table, as we say. So you start out in what I call one viscosity, the underwater world, and then you move over to the other viscosity, the air world. And the way I made that transition was I could see what was coming in terms of technology. And although the submarine and the underwater world, and one of my careers as an officer was as assistant officer in charge for the unmanned vehicle detachment in San Diego, where we had all the Navy's robotic systems in that group. So that's where I started to break free just of submarine technology and look at what was pretty much off-the-shelf technology that the oil and gas industry was using. From that experience, that I could see a very similar in the electronics and in the software. If you look at the code for programming an underwater vehicle, there's a lot of the same code in the air vehicles that were being developed at the time. So I could see what was coming and how it was going, and I had been introduced to the air side back in 2004 when I had a consulting agreement with Edison Schwest Offshore down here in Galliano. And that was a great experience working with the family down there and learning new skill sets on the civilian side. And while there, it was when the airport reached out to Mr. Gary Schwest to say, how are you getting all these government contracts? We're struggling over here at the airport. Who's doing that for you? And said, well, you need to see George Ray. And it was through that meeting that they asked if I would work with them. And I told Mr. Montero and Earl Hicks at the time, I can't spell airport. I'm a submariner. And I said, don't worry about the spelling. If you can get the money, we'll spell airport for you. Yeah. So I put a team together, and over a couple of years, working with the airport, we got the $14 million to redo the main runway, which was very old, dying, so to speak, a World War II runway. And if they didn't get something done soon, they may not be an airport any longer. And that would be a great blow to the community, the region, and to Louisiana.
But just listening to you, that's why I'm going back to diversity. Submarine guy, air guy, officer, consultant, guy can go get the money for people. You picked up an engineering degree along the way,
Ocean engineering.
Yeah, but just still engineering. I mean, the things that you've been through, And you had to be open to learn. Where'd you get that from?
I think, one, there's something in all of us that desires to accomplish things, and it's, do you listen to it and do you act upon it? And then from that early days with the chief petty officer saying, if I can do it, you can do it, that attitude that try it. It may be different, it may be new, and along the way you may learn something and add to your experience and skill set. People say you're lucky. I think you kind of make your luck, and that's when, experience and opportunity come together. You make your luck that way. So I've always felt that way. Let me try that. That's new, that's different, that will open up a new avenue for me, and if it looks like it's fun, I want to try it.
Were you an overachiever growing up?
Oh, I think so, with all the Boy Scouts, Sea Scouts, playing football at little farms in Kenner. All those things you had to go out for. You had to show your ability to do something. If you wanted to make the football team, you had to be good at that. And so the same thing with the Scouts and the merit badges.
Did you play sports?
Oh, yeah.
What did you play?
Football. So that was my
What
sport.
position?
Early on, I was on the line, but as we all got to grow, some of the kids got much bigger than me, so I moved from the line to right end, and occasionally I was pretty fast, so fullback. So when you're young like that, they'll move you around and do things of that nature. But I would think, and then track in school.
Yeah.
Did a lot of running.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. You mentioned being in California. Coronado?
Coronado is part of San Diego. I was, that was my second tour of duty as an officer. So I've left Washington State, where the Trident submarines on the West Coast are. Then I was transferred down to San Diego to the Unmanned Vehicle Detachment. Even though the submarines were across the bay, we were stationed over on the Naval Air Station on Coronado. And the reason is the aircraft could pull right up to our hangar. We could load up all these robotic systems and fly anywhere in the world to go do whatever the Navy assigned us to do. Along with us, we had the Deep Submergence Rescue Vehicle in the compound, which I think most people would remember, Hunt for Red October. And you see that little bitty submarine that they put on the back of one of the big submarines. Those two were there. And then we had two what we call deep submergence vehicles. One could go to 12,000 feet of depth, and the other one could go to 20,000 feet of depth. So all this high technology was located for the Navy. And one group, they kept us on the Naval Air Station on Coronado there.
Didn't you have a good view of Alcatraz?
Well, that's way up in San Francisco.
Okay.
So that would be my last duty, where I was stationed on the USS Parche, and it was home ported in Mare Island, which is past San Francisco up the river there. And every time you come in and out to go to Mare Island, you have to go around Alcatraz Island and under the Golden Gate Bridge. That was a great tour for me. That's where I was, wanted the tour, got it. It was a highly sought after job, and that way I could go from my enlisted qualification, which are Silver Dolphins, to get my Gold Dolphins as an officer. So you have to go through a whole nother set of training, where on the enlisted side it's all technical, and on the officer side is how do you run this submarine, how do you fight this submarine, and it's a whole new set of skills that you have to learn. So that was really challenging. I was quite up in age as a submariner at that time, and often wonder, why did I come back? Because it was a tough tour. But again, you go through a whole litany. It's a binder of requirements you have to go through to get qualified as an officer on a submarine.
As I'm sitting here talking to you, you mentioned Gary Schwest, and we all know Mr. Gary. And he's built such a great company, and he's such a great business person. But in order for you to be doing business with Mr. Gary, you have to have certain qualities that have elevated you to be at that table. I could see the things in you. You have confidence about you. You don't showboat. You just tell it like it is. But steady would be the word. Is that the things you think propelled you in this career?
I think I have to go back to when I first met him, and that was back when I was the assistant officer in charge of the unmanned vehicle detachment in San Diego on Coronado. Mm-hmm. And one day, sitting in my office doing paperwork, getting ready to take a team to sea, and preparing for that, I get a knock on my door, and I think it's my administrative yeoman bringing more papers in. When the door opens, I see these two very large gentlemen who almost touch the top of the door jamb. It was Mr. Gary and Mr. Laney. And they had a whole big roll of prints. I didn't know what they were at the time. And I said, "Gentlemen, are you lost? Can I help you?" They said, "Are you George Ray?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "No, we want to speak to you if you've got a moment." So I said, how did you even get here on the base? And then they said, "Well, we've got a gentleman downstairs that worked for us who's retired. He's got a sticker," and we were able to get on the base. So I said, "Well, what can I help you with?" He said, "Well, we want to go after the contract that the military has for a vessel that you guys are looking for. And we're going to give you a great vessel, but what we want to do is hear from the people who really operate it, and we want to know what's good or bad or what you thought. Can you give us a few minutes of your time?" I said, "Well, sure." So he starts to put it on my desk, these roll of prints. I said, "Let's just put it on the floor." So on the floor goes Mr. Laney and Mr. Gary and me, and they start showing me the prints, and I grabbed my red mark. I said, "Well, this will never work, and here's why," and flip the next one, and that's not going to work. And long story short, we went through that. They thanked me. I thought nothing more of it, and left. And so before I got transferred from that job, my next job was going to be the Pentagon. Didn't know it at the time. Mm-hmm. And they won the contract. It's a job that I have to ensure the contract is fulfilled, which requires me, the guy I was relieving, the lieutenant there, says, "Oh, by the way, you're going to have to go to someplace down in Louisiana. I've never heard of it. It's called Galliano. That's where the contract is for the vessel. You're going to have to go down to various meetings and inspect." And I'm thinking, well, throw me in that briar patch. I get to go home and see my family.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
And it was through that experience, I think, of working with them, all the give and take we had to do when they needed something, but it wasn't in the contract, if I thought it was the right thing, and then I'd go back and talk to the admiral and talk to Military Sealift Command, because that's where the contract was through, and then work through the problems that they thought were insurmountable, but then I was able to solve those problems. By the time the ship was delivered, it met everything and more that the Navy folks out in San Diego who would operate it would want from a vessel. 2 years of, off and on meetings, we got to know each other quite well. And so right when I was over in Italy, it was my first tour in the Pentagon, that I called home every so often to see how the family was doing. And she says, "There's some gentleman called the house." And I said, "Who was it?" It's Mr. Laney Schwest. I said, "Yeah, I know him, but I haven't heard from those guys in a while." just let them know I'll call them when I get back into the States. So reached back and they said, hey, we know you returned this year. We want you to come work for us. I said, well, it's really next year. And I don't think I want to work for just one person anymore. I've done that with Uncle Sam for 33 years. And I'm thinking about starting my own company. And that's when they said, well, we would like to be your first customer. Would you at least consider us? I said, absolutely. So that's how I got to work with them for quite some time. And then I was assigned, when I came aboard, to work with Kurt Schwest, Eddie Schwest's son. And got to know Kurt, a fabulous young man. Ended up knowing more about contracts than even I knew, but really bright and smart. It was a great experience. I learned a lot from Mr. Gary about contracting on that side of the fence, and then working with Congress and working with all the companies that support, because he's so vertically integrated in everything he does. So that really helped me move into the civilian side of life.
But it had to make you proud that a lot of the vessels that are built for the military come out of Louisiana.
Absolutely. And quality, just the support they gave. I've managed many of government contract, and there are companies who get it and then it's like they disappear. They got the money, but they don't want to support you, or the first thing out of their mouth is, that's not in the contract. Well, I haven't even talked about the contract.
Right.
And it was just the opposite when I was on the military side working with Edison Schwest Offshore. It was always about, what do you need? How do we make it better? We want to support the sailor on the deck. That's so important to me.
I guess change orders is natural when you're developing something new.
Right.
You're going to go, just like if you're building a house, you know the wife will be in the kitchen going, oh, we need a little nook right here. Okay, change order. I guess it's similar.
And that was the other thing with the change orders. There were many that they could have put in, but Mr. Gary just said, we're going to do that. We think that's the right thing. Don't worry about it. A cabinet here, or a door there, or something on the back deck. We needed more cleats in a certain area to work with the equipment. And it was only, when it was just too big to graciously say, I'll take care of that,
Right.
that he would come to me and say, hey, this is important. We need to do this. It's not part of it. It's going to be a change order. And then I had to take that back to the Pentagon and work through that. But they worked closely with me. So you work with a company like that, and it's a real experience and a great sense of pride that you never have to worry about what's going on behind you. They always have your back. They're there for you. Those are the companies that make America great. And I would like to think that the Schwest family is one of the great companies of this nation that really supports the maritime industry, supports the state like no other. And I was really proud to have a small part in the company for a while.
Well, we absolutely think highly of them. They're great for our area. For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.